Story 1. Any job that involves talking to the general public requires not only people's skills, but also patience with rude and condescending individuals. I have great respect for retail workers, waiters, bartenders, and others in similar roles. Story 2. I edit videos, and for some reason, some people think it takes the same amount of time to edit a video as it takes to watch it. Story 3. Caregiving and teaching children, especially young children, is physically and mentally exhausting if done properly. Story 4. From this thread, it seems like basically everything is harder than people think. Story 5. Retail and food service jobs are often considered easy, but they are not. Story 6. Geriatric nursing. I walked into the soiled linens room and almost had a heart attack from the stench. Story 7. Apartment maintenance. Many people think we do nothing but walk around and ride golf carts all day. Story 8. Secretary at a school. You manage every detail. Every purchase, every staff issue, every parent grievance, every event, every report, every enrollment and withdrawal, every repair. You handle everything and everyone. You wear many hats. First in and last out most days. I still love it, but I am very tired. Story 9. Most jobs. People do not realize what happens behind the scenes of jobs they have never worked. We are poor as a society at acknowledging that we have no idea what most jobs entail on a day-to-day basis. If someone's job seems effortless, it is probably because they are working hard to make it appear that way. Story 10. This may sound controversial, but management. I somehow work more now as a low-level operational manager than I did as an hourly non-manager. The pay is arguably worse when you consider how much I work. I have done 14-hour days with no overtime because of salary, no breaks. When someone calls in sick thinking it is not their problem if they do not show up, which was my initial thought, it negatively affects me. Not to mention the stress. Everything is always my fault. Story 11. Massage therapist. Incredibly difficult on the body, and I swear to God, people get naked and they bare their soul. Story 12. Cleaner or janitor. Physically exhausting, unpleasant, and often underappreciated. Story 13. Letter carrier. Those who still have door-to-door routes walk 30,000 steps a day, damaging their knees on endless stairs and carrying a large amount of junk mail packets along with various letters. They face sweltering heat, extreme cold, and heavy rain. You may be bitten by a dog, and the owner will always say, "He is friendly," before it happens. You will almost be hit by cars and backed into by trucks. From a mental standpoint, you are responsible for planning your route, managing your packages, sorting mail, handling call for slips, and performing sub-office drop-offs and pickups. When you start out without your own route, you will do a new route every day, often in a new depot for years. It is a good, reliable job that will slowly ruin your body and wear down your mind. Story 14. Veterinarians have very high depression rates, which is understandable since part of the job involves euthanizing sick animals. Story 15. A dentist operates on people who are extremely anxious and awake, sometimes choking on saliva or water, while trying to work with precision, staring at a mirror that reflects an upside-down image. Story 16. Scare acting. I have been doing it since 2018. Everyone who has ever been through a scare maze or haunted house assumes that being one of the actors is just really fun and easy. As much as it is fun, it is not always easy, and I swear it is brutal work. It is constant cardio, and prolonged exposure to intense lighting, loud audio, and artificial atmosphere genuinely begins to affect your mind, especially with the characters you are playing. Not to mention how many guests cannot handle scary situations and often try to attack you, start a fight, or get in your face and speak to you disrespectfully. The fun you get out of it makes it worth it. However, the work can be brutal. It is exhausting and draining, and you literally end up running on fumes, vibes, and delirium. Story 17. Doggy daycare is not just playing with puppies all day. It involves being on your feet for 8 to 10 hours, cleaning up messes, mopping urine, getting jumped on, getting drooled on, breaking up occasional scuffles or fights, coming home smelling like dogs, and struggling to remove that odor from your clothes. Story 18. Attorney. Everyone blames you when things go wrong, especially after you warned them it was going to happen. The politics are brutal. The person who lacks knowledge but has the right connections ends up a judge. The best attorneys I know will never receive judicial appointments. Everyone wants our services for free. I don't call a tradesman or mechanic and expect free work. Prosecutors can lose their job if their superior loses an election. All this comes after 3 more years of student debt and a challenging bar exam designed to extract more money from you. Story 19. I might be coming from left field here, but I think there is a perception from people who have not really done office jobs in a company that it can be easy because you are inside and just sitting at a computer. However, I think they do not realize that it is not the actual work that destroys you, it is the politics and bureaucracy. I work for a multinational company at the moment in a well-paid role where I work from home, and I am lucky in many ways. But the bureaucracy and the hierarchies make it kind of Kafkaesque. I tried to resolve what should have been a minor issue with a software system last week, and I had to speak to 11 people in 4 countries and get approval from a very senior person to make a change. Story 20. Landscaping in the summer. Imagine how you feel after squats or doing something really exerting, but it is 97 degrees Fahrenheit and in the sun for more than 8 hours a day. Story 21. Kind of an umbrella answer. Any profession that is self-regulated. Not only do you have to perform perfectly for clients, your personal reputation, your employer, and their reputation and expectations, but you are also governed on your performance by your state or provincial regulator. So you can make mistakes, but you will hear it from clients, your employer, and the professional regulator. If you make serious errors, it can ruin your whole career trajectory. Story 22. Customer service involves constant emotional labor and handling angry or rude people throughout the day. Story 23. Teaching is challenging. I am in my 29th year now, working in a public high school in the United States. Story 24. Middle management if you are good. If you are bad, quite possibly the easiest job in human history. Story 25. All jobs that involve repetitive physical labor and standing are hard. Jobs that involve thinking, and I do not mean that in a condescending way, are easier, but not everyone can do them. Not everyone can be an engineer, doctor, or lawyer. Most people could do the job on the line at a car plant for a day. Most people also could not do that job on the line at a car plant for 30 years. Story 26. Teaching is much harder than most people realize. It is not just standing in front of a class and talking. Teachers have to plan lessons, grade constantly, and manage dozens of different personalities every single day. They deal with parents, administrators, and state testing requirements on top of trying to help children learn. Also, the pay is terrible. Story 27. All of them. This is why artificial intelligence will not replace nearly as many jobs as technology enthusiasts think. Story 28. Trucking lease operators are on the road 50 weeks out of the year and do not make half of what they are worth. Story 29. Telemarketer back in the day was a tough job. The phone auto-dialed, so you literally had no break to think between calls. The whole experience was a mentally painful blur. Your brain felt like it was in a prison 8 hours a day. I would rather do almost any job before doing that again. Story 30. I remember working at Chipotle and totaling around 18 to 20,000 steps on some shifts. I worked in a busier area, managed the grill, and then closed dishes, so there was much more movement. Food service is definitely very hard because it is so monotonous. Story 31. I have been an artist's model in a painting class. You should pick a comfortable position because it will start to hurt after a while. Story 32. Do not forget the farmer who is succeeding in all kinds of weather and in any kind of economy. Being land rich and money poor is a real situation. Story 33. Residential cleaners are often underestimated. People think, oh, big deal. You push a vacuum for a living. Those people have never met a residential cleaner. Story 34. I work as a nurse practitioner 3 days a week and stay home with my wonderful toddler 2 days a week. She is a delight, and we have so much fun together. However, I would absolutely burn out as a stay-at-home mom. It is so much work, and your only off time is nap time, when you have to catch up on dishes and cleaning. Kudos to full-time stay-at-home moms of babies and toddlers. Story 35. Emergency dispatch operations involve not only the job itself with all its nuances and moving parts, but also dealing with people treating you poorly 65% of the time when you are just trying to provide the most appropriate care for them. Please be kind to emergency dispatchers. We go to work to help our communities. Story 36. Any higher-level business position with a larger company is challenging. It generally requires a very specific understanding of the business and its place in the market it serves. Directors and vice presidents of supply chain are among the most well-rounded and intelligent people I have worked with. Story 37. Being a pharmacy technician is like spinning plates on your fingers, toes, and nose while trying to smile as someone yells at you that United Healthcare caused issues with a prior authorization. Heaven forbid I let my mask slip, and you see how frustrated, mad, irritated, or sad I am, and then the boss gets a complaint. People say, just slap a label on it, what takes so long? The job is hard, fun, and frustrating, and 90% of technicians do not get paid what they are worth for such a complicated position. Story 38. Corporate desk jobs may not strain the body, but they certainly strain the mind. Story 39. I am not a social worker or a nurse, but those are two jobs that I think are very difficult and draining. Story 40. Most of the jobs that were essential during COVID-19 lockdowns were much harder than you would think. The people who did them worked full-time for 100% pay while others stayed at home receiving 80% of their wages. Essentially, we all earned 20% less of our wages during that horrible and stressful time. Story 41. I worked at U-Haul for a few years, and it was grueling work both mentally and physically. I would easily get in over 10,000 steps during a shift. Being a young, attractive woman at the time did not help because I constantly had to escape uncomfortable sexual advances from male customers and deal with overt sexism. It was satisfying, however, to show them I could hook up trailers, reverse 26-foot trucks into the smallest parking spots, and carry my body weight in packing materials. Story 42. Serving tables. Serving one table is easy and boring. Serving more than 25 people across at least 6 tables simultaneously, and convincing each that they are the only table in the restaurant is not. Story 43. Game development. Even a tester, who is often seen as, you just sit there playing games all day, does not have it that easy or exciting. You need to play the same small portion over and over in hundreds of different conditions. Restart a level or save and load 1,000 times, equip every possible combination of items, try to throw every object at a closed door, and so on. So you would probably need at least basic scripting skills to automate some of that. Then you need to do it all over again to confirm that a bug you found is actually fixed. Story 44. This comment section is filled with easy jobs that I did when I was a teenager. If you can teach someone your job in 2 days, then it is not that hard. Story 45. Lifeguarding at a pool or lake. I did it for a few years myself. That first moment of panic, thinking someone might be drowning, really gives you adrenaline and makes you question if you remembered all the life-saving information from training. It is a fun outdoor job until you need to save someone's life and it becomes serious. It is amazing to think I was 16 doing cardiopulmonary resuscitation to save someone's life. Story 46. Based on Reddit comments, people have no clear understanding of what executives do. Story 47. Mid-level managers. You are an individual contributor and a manager at the same time. Story 48. Fundraising for a nonprofit is challenging. Most people do not realize how difficult it is or how long it takes to build a relationship with a donor to secure a significant gift. Story 49. Teaching. Everyone thinks it is easy because of the saying, those who cannot do, teach. But you are essentially running more than 6 hours of live performance daily for an audience that may not want to be there. Meanwhile, you must juggle differentiated instruction for students with widely varying abilities, manage overprotective parents, handle classroom behavior, grade papers at home, and purchase your own supplies because the school does not provide them. Story 50. Working in collegiate or professional sports is not all you think it will be. Story 51. Worker in a large amusement park in any capacity. I did it multiple summers as a child. People think it is like summer camp because of all the young people, and to be fair, there was a lot of youthful romantic activity going on, but the rest of it was working class hell. Story 52. Recruiting is like sales, but with large egos, complex emotions, and products that can choose not to be delivered. Story 53. Fluff girl on the adult film set. This is no joke because she is salaried and takes care of the director during filming and the performers before the scene starts. Then, at the after party, at least the performers can help her out. No, I was not one, but you can read about them. It is a very hard job. Here is to the fluff girls trying to make an honest dollar. Can I get an up your support? Story 54. IKEA restaurant. The space is large and people do not like standing or walking around for hours at a time. Story 55. This might get lost in the sauce, but power plant operating engineers and service engineers have one of the more difficult jobs out there. This list is not exhaustive by any means, but doing this job means you have to know how to operate and maintain natural gas-fired and oil-fired boilers, natural gas and steam turbines, high-voltage electrical infrastructure, low-voltage infrastructure, high and low-voltage electromechanical auxiliary, equipment like motors, servos and actuators, air compressors, vacuum pumps, chemical injection pumps, cooling towers, air conditioning systems like heat pumps and heat recovery equipment, hydronic boiler systems, clean steam boilers, thermostats, magnetic starters, normally open or normally closed circuits, journey-level plumbing and electrical work, high and low-pressure steam, water chemistry, fans, gearboxes, condensate recovery, and more, all for the low pay of about $35 per hour on average. It is extremely dangerous, labor-intensive, and mentally taxing work. Also, we can plug devices into the wall and have power. Story 56. College administrator. People love to joke that administrators do nothing, but I do everything. Everything is my responsibility. I handle all room reservations, provide all medical students with their materials for class, communicate with the laboratories to ensure proper setup for class, run the examinations, and do everything except teach. Sometimes I even teach but do not receive credit as a teacher. Some administrators have an easy life, but the majority are the behind-the-scenes masterminds of everything. Story 57. Teaching is not easy, but it is even more exhausting than you might think. I have worked many construction jobs, landscaping, and in the food industry. Teaching is much harder. Those who know it all too well. Story 58. Any part of real estate development below the highest level requires technical proficiency. While senior management has many responsibilities to coordinate and manage, everyone below them must be highly skilled in technical aspects. Story 59. Straight commission sales. I have been doing it since March 18, 1996. It builds confidence and resilience. Story 60. I am probably overthinking this, but how about a stonemason? Story 61. Being a laborer for a utility company requires extensive knowledge and effort to ensure a power plant operates optimally and supplies electricity to millions of people. I am a carpenter who builds scaffolding in difficult locations for laborers to access and clean boilers of coal plants. These are some of the most hazardous and unpleasant areas in a power plant, second only to the electricians who regularly handle 15,000-volt lines. Feels like an episode of 1,000 Ways to Die, but every day. Story 62. Based on how often someone asks if you need any education to do my job, I guess medical laboratory technician. Good luck with that blood transfusion without me. Story 63. Teaching is one of the most underestimated professions. You are simultaneously an educator, therapist, conflict mediator, event planner, and administrative expert, all while being underpaid and overworked. Story 64. Teaching. It is 8:11 p.m. I just finished preparing for tomorrow. I have been doing this for 21 years. I do not phone it in. Most of us do not. Almost everyone thinks we are failing idiots. Story 65. Construction work of any kind is talked down way too often for that not to be the case. The reverse is cleaning, though. Somehow, people say it is the hardest job ever. Story 66. Actually teaching and mastering instructional strategies is quite difficult. Story 67. Whatever I am doing, whatever you are doing, but not whatever they are doing. Story 68. I stopped a while ago because of logistics, which is how you get your items, and customer service. Poor pay and dealing with your parents were also issues. Story 69. This job drains the life out of you. If I hear another person say, "But you have all that time off." Oh yeah, real relaxing when all my friends are working, vacations are more expensive, and I'm broke because of my low pay. But you get the reward of inspiring our youth. Wait till they see you in public and thank you. Forget all this. Give me real pay, fewer students, and more preparation time. Speaking as an educator, I don't think our country realizes how broken our education systems are. I teach science, not English. Story 70. Dental care can be challenging. Many people express strong negative feelings, such as anxiety and dislike. Often, dental health is disregarded, and concerns are not taken seriously until the situation becomes severe. Story 71. Coding. I work in information technology and do it, but it is not for everyone. When I hear politicians say that they will retrain people from manufacturing or low-skilled jobs to code, I get annoyed because they speak as if anyone can code. How about we start with politicians first, I think to myself. Story 72. School front office staff are the people working at the front desk. They are usually the women on the front lines, answering calls, dealing with parents, keeping track of students, monitoring cameras, and assisting administrators, all while managing many other tasks for very little pay. Without the front office staff, the school would not operate effectively. This is a fact. Story 73. Animal care in any capacity may seem like caring for cute animals, but death can come suddenly and unexpectedly. After years of caring for a living being, to find their body the next day is emotionally draining. Story 74. I used to be a chef, so my first vote goes to that. Long hours, always on your feet, hot environment, constant small cuts or burns, and most customers and bosses are ungrateful. The pay is poor for the average chef. Now I am a head shunter, which is my second choice. Most people do not know what I do. The hours are long as well, mostly 12-hour shifts. We are always outside, and it can be quite dangerous, but at least the pay and benefits are much better. Story 75. Everyone thinks they can write a book. Writing a good book, on the other hand, is much more difficult. This is before you consider the statistically low pay and the fact that staying published is almost as hard as getting published. If you choose to pursue self-publishing, you gain much more control, but you must do everything yourself or be willing to pay someone to do it for you. This includes writing, editing, blurbs, marketing, cover design. Anything a professional publishing house would normally handle is now your responsibility. Good luck. Story 76. I do not know about that, but I can tell you hands down that being employed by the Canadian Armed Forces, if you live in Canada, is much easier than people think. Story 77. Being a parent is very hard. It is challenging to prevent your hyper-toddler from hurting herself by doing something unsafe. You pretend to be interested in the things they want to talk about at age 5, watch the same movie, Frozen, repeatedly, figure out what to feed them constantly, try to avoid meltdowns in public, and watch them destroy your house and car, like melted crayons on the back seat. All this is to earn the privilege of reaching the teenage years, when they may not appreciate you, sometimes disrespect you, and you try to keep them safe from online dangers. It is exhausting, unrewarding, and expensive. Story 78. Child care workers are significantly underpaid for the responsibility and stress they must manage. Story 79. Anything that pays $25 to $30 per hour, above or below that is uncertain. Typically, a bit above minimum wage is the ideal rate for consistently hard work. Story 80. Phone support, customer service, technical support, help desk, whatever it is incredibly difficult to do that day in and day out. Especially when someone in the product team designed a product that assembles in a new or unusual way but did not document it anywhere. For that, it is threaded in reverse, so you just turn it clockwise to loosen it. Why would you do this and not tell anybody? No documentation, thousands of tickets, dozens of return merchandise authorizations. And for what? Just to feel different. Story 81. Breakfast radio. In the studio at 3:15. Have to talk to difficult people on the phone for 3 hours. Content can be hard to generate every day, 5 days a week. Constant sound checks with management. Someone is always trying to steal your chair, both figuratively and literally. Not worth it. Story 82, hot take. As someone who worked in food service for years, it is not that bad. Yes, there is a level of difficulty, but every job has challenges. Working in manual labor, you still deal with difficult, rude, and toxic people. However, it is more dangerous. You walk more, you lift significantly more, your body wears down faster, your mental health deteriorates, and it is brutal. If I could make as much as I do now with the benefits I have, I would go back to food service in a heartbeat. At the end of the day, there is no perfect job. We are all just cogs in a large machine. It should not be blue-collar versus white-collar versus retail or food service. Very few of us make it out of the grind. So let us do our best to treat each other right and be good to one another. Then maybe one day we can enact change that is truly beneficial for us, the working-class citizens. Story 83. Hazardous materials driver that delivers fuel or acids. They make a lot of money if you are clean and dependable. Story 84. Inflatable maintenance refers to those bouncy houses children used to jump around in. These inflatables are difficult to clean and maintain. You cannot just hose them down because water increases the chance of the material developing large holes. All the patches on the sides are from rain damage or inexperienced staff using a hose while the inflatable is fully inflated. At the end of the day, cleaning involves manually using a spray bottle and towel to wipe down every surface to eliminate bacteria and germs from children and adults. Then you carefully roll it up and, while avoiding injury, place it on a cart to move it inside the warehouse until the next use. The bouncy houses are not too difficult, but the giant slide with the inflated stairs or ladder rising 2 to 3 stories is much more challenging. Cleaning it after a single day of setup at the state fair can take 6 hours or more. Story 85. Copywriter and user experience writer. It seems easy, but it really is not. Story 86. Managing an in-and-out is more stressful than the military, college, and healthcare combined. Story 87. I cook for wealthy golfers. I tried hitting golf balls for the first time this week and cannot imagine ever being adequate. It was much more difficult than I thought. Story 88. Do people finally think being an automotive technician is hard? I am thinking of starting to charge by the minute since I often hear, it will only take you a couple of minutes. Story 89. Working at a grocery store. I used to work at one years ago. Where do I start? You are standing almost all day on a hard floor, lifting heavy boxes of products, dealing with difficult coworkers, difficult managers, and worst of all, difficult customers. My most disliked were, and still are, older men from the baby boomer generation. I feel really sorry for the deli staff, working for minimum wage, slaving over hot ovens and boiling oil. Also, entitled customers can complain when they run out of bland potato wedges or bland potato salad. The schedule is also difficult. I had to be in at 2:30 a.m. every Monday and Thursday for freight. The rest of the week, my schedule was whatever my incompetent manager decided at the time. Still, at least I was several years out of the grocery business by the time COVID-19 hit. Thank goodness. For everyone who worked in grocery stores during the pandemic, I am very sorry. Story 90. Working in a bakery. I am a cake decorator at a grocery store. Aside from dealing with the general public, the job is physically exhausting. Being on your feet for 6 to 8 hours a day, lifting, carrying, and moving massive metal bowls and boxes of cakes and packaging that weigh at least 25 to 30 pounds. At my store, the bakery department has been understaffed for months. Most of the time, a single cake decorator has to manage all cake orders, stock the cake case, freezer, and various tables on the sales floor, handle phone calls and customers when the front-end employee is unavailable, and provide backup. I am expected to complete all of this within the given work hours for less than $20 an hour. The workload increases during the holiday season from September through December. If you place a cake order at your local store, please be understanding if the frosting shade is not exactly as expected. You have no idea how stressful the department can be for the employees. Story 91. Officers and crew on any type of ship spend months away from family and friends, working 7 days a week for a minimum of 70 hours. Pay has not increased in a long time, and transitioning to land-based roles is very difficult. Most companies treat employees like disposable paper cups when it suits their own interests. There are no taxes in most countries, which is a positive aspect. Story 92. Being a local mobile disc jockey is retail combined with customer service, some hospitality, an art and a science and public speaking. Story 93. Accounting is far more than just working with numbers. It is not uncommon for accountants to work over 60 hours per week during the busy season. Story 94. Any job that depends on above-average intelligence, meaning the ability to have rational, critical, and demonstrable knowledge, is becoming a rare commodity. Story 95. Most jobs that are not your job will be harder than they seem. Story 96. Acting is challenging, even for the few people in the world who are talented or fortunate enough to do it professionally. Story 97. Any job in the music industry is one that only a few can succeed in. You really have to put in the work. I started working with companies around 2017 to 2018. Before that, it was all project-based work, which was still acceptable and paid the bills. This job requires a lot of dedication, patience, practice, constant listening, and continuous execution of your plans, even if you do not see results yet. Story 98. I would say any job, really, but for me personally, bartending. Many people think it is just pouring drinks and chatting with customers all day. It is not as romanticized as people make it. It is a job. Story 99. Dentistry. Every patient dislikes you, insurance companies dislike you, and you dislike yourself. Story 100. Not comparable in difficulty to some other jobs, such as handling the general public or teaching, but it has a rarely considered aspect. Civil service requires you to forfeit some freedom of speech, actions, and subsequently ease of conscience. From time to time, you may have to implement decisions you personally oppose because the supporting politicians came to power and ordered them done. You must be extremely careful when commenting anywhere, including media, social media, or larger gatherings on public matters, especially those related to your work. It is better to avoid such comments altogether if you want peace at work. Participating in protests against the government is unthinkable, and it is better if your family refrains as well. This all comes with a salary typically lower than comparable private sector jobs. Civil service has its own challenges for a person with a big heart and critical thinking skills. Story 101. Postal worker, landscaper, fast food worker, home improvement worker, mechanic, truck driver, and others. Most of these jobs do not require skilled trades, but the amount of work can be undeniably overwhelming and exhausting. Story 102. A job that some might think is basic, but is more challenging than others believe, is being somebody's personal assistant. It requires you to always anticipate that person's needs and be alert. Story 103. Working for the government, especially in a position involving contact with the general public, can be challenging because people can be abusive. Story 104. I was a care worker for 12 years and worked with every vulnerable group except children. It was challenging, but we were well loved and respected for the most part. I am a bus driver now. It is comically difficult. This job combines chaotic traffic, a 12-ton vehicle, and the frequently late general public. My favorite thing is weekend drivers who think they are traffic officers and are never wrong. God forbid that a professional driver might actually know what they are doing. Shocking. Story 105. Small business ownership sounds glamorous until you realize it is a non-stop juggling act. Managing cash flow, customer expectations, employee issues, and unforeseen crises, often with little to no rest or outside validation. The mental load can be enormous. Story 106. Animation, also known as making cartoons professionally, is often perceived as a fun job because watching cartoons is enjoyable. It can be rewarding, but the hours are typically grueling, the workload heavy, and the pressure of deadlines stressful. Additionally, many artists set a high standard for themselves, which adds to the challenge. In other words, it is no different from any other job. Story 107. If your job requires you to help, assist, or talk to other people, for example, customers, you will understand what average intelligence quotient actually is. Story 108. Any job that you or your best friend does is the hardest. Story 109. Working in childcare is much more exhausting and stressful than most people realize. Story 110. Being a waiter can be really hard because people can be rude sometimes. Story 111. Any patron-facing jobs in a public library. It is one of the few places where people can linger without being expected to pay. You encounter entitled parents, aggressive homeless individuals, teenagers who start vaping indoors, and more. You get paid very little, spend most of the day on your feet, and it is common for librarians to develop carpal tunnel syndrome. Additionally, during flu season, schools circulate illness, putting you at high risk of infection. Story 112. I hope someone can relate to this. My previous job was in a lumber yard. I worked very hard and averaged almost 3,000 hours a year for 2 years in a row, including retail hours, and managed over 140 people at the age of 20. I left there to go to the steel mill. I worked hard, moved up, and reached the highest position with the retirement job in the plant. It pays the most, and I sit in a chair in air conditioning for 12 hours straight. Honestly, I could close my eyes for 11 out of 12 hours. I am by myself in my own space, see no people, and don't lift a finger. I do nothing. I have what we call golden handcuffs. I did all this for a family and still have that dream. I deeply miss working hard. Story 113. Referee. I was an ice hockey referee when I was younger, and it is much harder than people think. Some calls are nearly impossible to make in a split second. I had fans and coaches throw things at me and had to remove some people from the arena. I was hit in the face with a stick, which required stitches and left a scar that is still visible. I now have much more respect for referees when I watch sports of any kind on television. Every sports fan should try being a referee before they criticize them. Story 114. Back-to-back customer service calls. Non-stop problem solving all shift long. I didn't have much time to think about anything else, always talking. After 5 years, I dreaded going in every day to the point where many days I would throw up before work. One day I felt a mental break coming on. I asked myself, why do I have to feel like this all the time? And then immediately answered, well, I don't, and quit on the spot. Story 115. Teaching is much more than just talking in front of a class. Have you ever tried managing 30 children at once? Story 116. I like that someone said all of them, but I will say farming. Things are much more difficult than manual labor and waiting for crops to grow. Story 117. Cycle courier. People try to harm you every day, and it is apparently considered acceptable behavior while someone is working. Story 118. Teaching children requires a great deal of work and patience. Now that I have my own child, I have a new level of respect for this effort. Additionally, dealing with difficult parents can be very challenging. Story 119. Social worker. Without the right balance and compliance with the role of social worker and private self, you will break down at some point. This strongly depends on the area. We love our job, we love the people we serve. You mean more to us than you think. However, it is the social, political, and financial circumstances that break you down. Story 120. Business-to-business sales involve many personalities. It is important to ensure that everyone feels included. Success depends on the quality of your most recent sale. Story 121. Everyone thinks being a bartender is just mixing drinks, but managing a packed bar is pure chaos. What job surprised you with how tough it was? Story 122. School bus driver. Try to manage everything while dealing with screaming children and so on. Story 123. Software engineer. I don't think many non-engineers realize how truly difficult it is to make yourself look busy constantly when, in fact, you are hiding doom-scrolling Reddit with your thumbs up your sleeves. Story 124. Teaching hands down. It is way more than just showing up and talking. It involves patience, planning, and dealing with 100 different personalities every day. Story 125. I think the job market is more efficient at pricing in difficulty than people, especially on Reddit, tend to suggest. From the outside, my current office job, where I have some people under me, looks much easier than when I was working on cars more than 10 hours a day in an unair-conditioned space, but it is much more difficult. The mental stress and inability to walk away entirely at the end of the day or week make the mental toll much greater than the physical toll of the other job. I am sure my boss at that garage, who was doing more difficult mechanical work while also running the small business, had it much tougher, but he also paid himself more. When we get together, most of my friends feel their job is quite hard, but that it could be worse. The one friend who feels otherwise works in finance on the buy side. He will happily tell you that he can go days without having any real work to do and averages under 20 hours a week of real work. His counterparts who are selling are always on the grind, as is the case for most sales jobs. Story 126. The primarily female Federal Bureau of Investigation agents have to watch cheese pizza videos on the internet to discover where it is made, how it is made, and who makes it. They literally have to watch that unpleasant content as part of their job function. This is the hardest job in the world. Story 127. Being a woman is the hardest job as you have to take care of your home, family, children, husband, in-laws, and if you are working, then you have to manage your professional work too. You are not only handling your personal but also your professional life with ease. A woman, while serving all these responsibilities, often forgets about herself. Story 128. Food inspectors at slaughter establishments are required to stand all day and cut organs to check that they are safe for consumption. These places are loud and hot. Depending on the size, you can see the entire slaughter process from start to finish. Between that and pathology, it is not suitable for people with a weak stomach. Story 129. Being a mechanic or technician of any kind, performing the task is one thing. Performing it well enough and quickly enough to be profitable is another. The job essentially depends 99% on experience rather than skill because experience determines how efficient you are. Efficiency is the difference between losing money in a business that is already expensive to set up or making a profit and surviving. Behind those high hourly rates people see lie many expenses and a lot of inconsistency. However, from the outside, many people think these prices are unreasonable and that mechanics are making a lot of money. They believe they can just do the work themselves by following a YouTube tutorial. Story 130. Pediatric nurse. Nursing is difficult enough. Having to see children die makes it worse. Story 131. Teaching is not just explaining. It is managing attention, emotion, and 30 different learning speeds at once. Story 132. Writing a novel, especially a good one, is challenging. Even writing a bad novel is not as easy as it seems. Story 133. Emergency medical services. Providing patient care is hard enough. Try doing it in the back of a moving vehicle. Story 134. Being a good teacher is challenging. Anybody can display a video or distribute worksheets. Actually teaching and instructing a large group of 15-year-old students in math, English, or science for 90 minutes straight is demanding. Getting students to do something they do not want to do is an underrated skill. Story 135. Anything related to feces and vomit from a person or animal. Story 136. Grocery delivery driver for a large supermarket in the United Kingdom. 25 drops per shift with many stares and plenty of unhappy customers whom you are expected to smile at, with low pay. Hard, demanding work. Story 137. Market research interviews are more than just reading a script. Story 138. Manager. Reddit likes to say managers sit around and give orders all day, and maybe a few do, but in reality it is a difficult and stressful job. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.